Okay, so hello again. Thank you for joining us in this webinar about 5 rules of thumb for smooth migration to the cloud. My name is Patricia and I'll be your host for today. Before beginning, let me just inform you that the session is recorded and will be shared with you after the webinar is over. So you will be able to revisit the information given now and also share it afterwards with your colleagues or network if you like. The presentation shouldn't take more than 35 minutes, so we will have 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A session. Make sure to leave your comments and questions in the designated Q&A area at the bottom. Now, a few words about accesa as a full IT service provider. We've been in the IT field for over 16 years now, mainly in the DACH market. We have over 600 experts in 19 competence centers. In terms of cloud capabilities, we have over 60 cloud engineers, having worked in more than 20 successful cloud migration projects. Our cloud services include assessment and planning, implementation and migration, security, governance, cost management, and of course, cloud managed services. So I'm happy to introduce to you our speakers today, who generously agreed to hold this webinar, Juliana Grava and Nico Calegari. Juliana has been with us for the past 3 years, working as operations lead in the modern workplace area. Her expertise varies from cloud migration projects to SharePoint and Microsoft 365. Nico has been a cloud consultant at accesa for almost 2 years, and his main specialties are Microsoft Azure, cloud migration, and also Microsoft 365. Both are eager to present to you their ideas, so let's just dive in. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and we'll hear each other again at the Q&A session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patricia, very much for introducing Nico and I, and a warm welcome to our audience.
Thank you very much.
Let's dive into the agenda, and after that, we will give you our 2 cents on why this topic is so important for us and these days. So if we take a look on our agenda, we can see that the actual rules of thumb, that make up the subject of today's webinar. And I will go through them one by one so you can get familiar with them. And then Nico and I will dive deeper into each of them. So the first rule is have an in-depth assessment and discovery phase. The second one is involve the business, not just IT. The third rule of thumb is create a new individual cloud blueprint. The fourth one is afraid to overestimate. And the last one is take advantage of the cloud security features and roles. And as Patricia mentioned, we do have an open Q&A at the end where Nico and I will be happy to answer your questions. So see you there. And now I think we can get started with introducing today's topic and why we chose it. Oops, sorry. This topic follows naturally for Nico and I after our Cloud Talk series. In this series, Nico and I discussed some common cloud concerns when migrating to the cloud, such as the cost of the migration, the complexity of this process, and security and compliance aspects. And having eased those concerns, we believe it's time now to discuss some steps that can be taken by companies to ensure a successful transition to the cloud. And the reason why we feel this topic is important is not only to encourage companies to migrate to the cloud, but also to ensure that they are informed and they choose the right migration path for their company. So on this slide, you can see a survey that was conducted by Unisys. This survey shows how well cloud migration expectations of companies were met. And this was measured across 6 dimensions that you can see in bold, revenues, costs, agility, competition, security, and productivity. So before we explain the chart, just to put things in perspective, 93% of the companies participating in this survey were at the time migrated to the cloud to some degree or another. So the pervasiveness of cloud adoption really can't be denied. Everyone is jumping on the cloud train, so to say. But what is more important is how successful those migrations are. And Unisys study found that the global success score is somewhere in the middle at just 49, if you see on the, if you look on the first line. So that suggests that there's definitely, yeah, thank you, Nico, definitely room for more cloud growth and more integration with existing IT infrastructure. And this study showed that the extent to which an IT infrastructure of an organization resides in the cloud actually makes a big difference when it comes to their effectiveness. So if you want to see the full study, you can find it on the Unisys website. So I think we can start with the first rule of thumb. Nico?
Yes, thank you, and welcome from my side as well. So I'm happy to announce today the first rule of thumb, and it may sound really easy for you, and but actually for us it's really important and really good point to have an in-depth assessment and discovery phase. So take your time and lean back, and we will explain what I mean by that. So when a company comes to us, usually they have their own thoughts why they want to move to the cloud, and so the first thing we do is actually find out what are their thoughts about why they're moving to cloud, what are the needs, what they looking for, and what are the goals they want to gain. So in the beginning, we do a little assessment. We call that a discovery assessment phase. And we take a look on finding your why, as is your current IT environment. Choose what workloads are really important to migrate, and maybe which we should leave on premise. And especially on the last step is what kind of cloud services you need. So that is the first phase what we do. So and the next thing is what is your goal? So I mentioned that earlier, just on the last slide. So what is your expectation? What you gaining when you're thinking about moving to the cloud? What's the improvement? What do you want to achieve? That is not an easy answer to answer for every company. So every company is different. So the answer to that goal is different. So it is really important to think about that. But if we talk about all the goals, I think it's important that you know what kind of services are we talking about when we're moving to the cloud. And especially what you might often hear is these typical words like IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. And actually, when I first came into the cloud business, I would say, I was wondering, what does it mean? So let's take a look and find out. So usually you do have the traditional IT. So that's when we talk, or that's what we call on-premise. You have to manage everything, and everything is in your responsibility. So it's not just like your operating system or your data and the application what's running there. It is your servers, your hardware, your storage, your networking, even the electricity, the cooling system. You have to manage everything, and you have to think about everything. So when the first cloud solutions came up, it was most of the time infrastructure as a service. So you kind of rented some hardware storage or hardware stuff, I would say it. So you kind of give away something you have to manage. So that's something a cloud vendor would do for you. So you just have to care about the middleware, runtime, your data, your applications. So that's it. The next thing is platform as a service. So as you can see, then what you have to manage, it gets less and less. And what you have to worry about. A big buzzword I would say is like serverless computing. So there are some services you don't even have to reserve a VM anymore. So there's a service that's running still on computers, but you don't care about the computers anymore. You just care about that it's running and what you need. And the last thing is software as a service. As a mm, big example, what we all know is probably Office 365. Nowadays it's called M365. So that you have software that's running in the cloud and you don't have to have it on your devices anymore. And your data is stored in the cloud if you want to. And this makes it really flexible and easy to use. And actually you just have to worry about your data and everything, but we come to that later on. So that's the thing what we are talking about. You might think it is kind of as confusing. Let's have a real not so let's have a real quick look on a different way of example. So you can find that on the internet. It's called pizza as a service, and I really do love this chart. So maybe you do that too. Um, so when you do, when you think of traditional IT and on-premise, you think on, actually you can think about a home party, doing a party at home, at your place. So you think about everything, you have to care about everything, about electricity, oven, the fire, the pizza, the beer, to invite all your friends and conversation. When it comes to infrastructure as a service, you think about, okay, I don't want to do it anymore at home. So you're renting a room, maybe a community kitchen, and you don't have to think about the electricity, the oven anymore, but still you have to provide the fire, the pizza, the beer, and everything. If you want to save some time in the beforehand and you think, okay, maybe a caterer will do the work. So that's when you come platform as a service come into play. So you just have to provide the drinks and the friends and the conversation, that's it. And you save a lot of time, you save a lot of trouble for that. And you have someone else doing that job for you and caring about that. And on the last thing, software as a service, it's even, it takes you away. You don't have to care about anything. There's someone who plans everything for you, gets you the location, gets you the drinks, the pizza, and even invite your friends for you. So you just have to come to your own party, enjoy everything. And that's, I think, more a nicer way to get a view into what kind of cloud types do we have. So actually, we are in the end of the first rule of thumb is have an in-depth assessment and discovery phase. As you all know, your IT environment is really, really complex, and there is now not a blueprint for every customer out there. It would be nice, it would be easy, but actually there isn't. So when we come to a customer, we find there like from 10 to 1,000 apps running in their environment, IT environment. So you can imagine how complex that is and how much legacy programs we have in all the custom environments. You really have to take a look into that. Then the other thing is it's not just about data, it's not about VMs or all the stuff, it's about IoT devices, it's about edge devices, hardware hosters, whatsoever. So we do have a diverse infrastructure at every customer when we come there. And of course, it's not only about a cloud-only strategy, and we really don't recommend that. That's really few cases that it could be a smart idea to do just a cloud-only strategy. We would call it, or actually, it's not just us who call that this week, but go with a hybrid environment, so that kind of change the view of it. So you still have something maybe still on premise and some services in the cloud, or maybe a multi-cloud solutions. That's what you can do too. You can have something from Microsoft Azure and something from Google Cloud as well, or AWS with Microsoft Azure. So we can really play with that. So as you can see, this is all a huge and complex topic. You don't have to worry about it, don't fear about it, just take your time, and it saves you a lot of time and a lot of trouble and of course a lot of money. So first rule of thumb, take your time and assess and discover your needs. Juliana, I think you will do the second rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Nico. So our second rule of thumb takes a little bit the focus from the computer itself, and it shifts it to the person sitting in front of the computer, meaning the people and their day-to-day work. So apart from looking at all of these infrastructure, IT infrastructure topics that Nico mentioned, we believe companies should also dig deeper into how the workloads and the applications are used by the business throughout the year. So the second rule of thumb is to involve the business as well, not just IT. And we need to find out, sorry, we need to find out how to, okay, thank you, Nico. We need to find out how the cloud might affect them, and how they could also make this work for them. We need to gather their input because this can be very valuable. And I think we as IT, we need to consider how different departments use their tools and applications and what their requirements are. And if, let's say, they might have some special requirements during the year where some tools are used more intensely. For example, you might have a lot of internet-facing applications in the marketing and sales department, but maybe not so many in the legal department. Or perhaps there would be some tools that are only used in certain periods of the year. If we think, for example, a company who hosts an annual showroom, they might have a registration tool that they only need once a year. Or for example, an e-commerce company might have a point of sales application that they would use especially during the holidays or some other special occasions. So during these times, the benefit of cloud is that we could be using the cloud resources to power them up, to spun them up, or and when that is no longer needed, we can shrunk them back down. Or if we think of other departments, for example, the legal or the financial departments, they have different security needs from, let's say, HR, who we know often they share a lot of documents with potential job candidates, which are external. So again, all of these need to be taken into account. And on the other hand, the business itself, they also have to do their part, let's say. They will need to be prepared for this transition to the cloud. They will need to understand the economic behaviors that this migration brings about. For example, we can think of the financial department they might have quite a shock if they had, let's say, an annual forecast which didn't foresee this migration to the cloud. Well, now they will have to redo this and take it into account. And generally, they need to do their part in seeing how they can contribute to the overall strategy for the transition and adoption, transition to the cloud and adoption of the cloud services. And they need to find ways of beneficial usage which are tailored to their department and to how they work. So how to do this is by engaging them and inspiring them to participate in this process. So one thing that that can make the migration smoother and drive the cloud adoption up is to create some pilot groups. And these would be made up of people who are maybe tech enthusiasts or they just want to try something new. Some stakeholders like team leads or some C-levels, perhaps that would be ideal, who would be advocates for the cloud, and a community of people who would help each other on this new way of working and hopefully improved way of working. And another way to engage other departments is to share the why with them, the one that Nico mentioned, the vision, to have the same vision and to keep a continuous and transparent communication with them. So to sum up our second rule of thumb, we've devised a little wheel of success, I think Nico called it, where we first always, and this applies either to the whole company level or on the department level or on each team level, we assess the needs of the team or the department. We prepare for the change, or they do so. Then we are able to adopt the changes and the benefits, and then this drives us to success. And if we somehow find that we can improve some more or there are new requirements, again, we start at the needs and continue on to the path. So that concludes our second rule of thumb. Nico?
I should unmute myself. Thank you very much. So let's go straight directly to rule number 3. It would be create a new individual cloud blueprint. Let's go just into the next slide. Most of the time, or not most of the time, but what we are facing every once in a while is that a company thinking about their cloud journey, migrating to the cloud, and they just thinking of copying their blueprint for their data center on-premise in the on-premise environment. So that is actually one idea how you could do it, but actually not most of the time not the best idea, because you lose a lot of possibilities, and you lose the possibility to might miss some services that are not able to you're not able to do on premise or whatsoever. So if you think about going into the cloud or moving into the cloud, migrating into the cloud, always take time, look on your infrastructure, on your needs, and then you can focus on what possibilities do I have outside there, and what cloud vendor is maybe giving you some services that you need. And yes, so that's about it. Not that's not about it, but that's about this slide. So when it comes to your mind about migrating to the cloud, it's always Yulia mentioned that, or mentioned to me a couple of days ago, that it's the 5 R's, and actually that's true. So you could think about rehost, refactor, re-architect, rebuild, or replace. But what does it mean? So usually you do have like your on-premise apps, data, infrastructure, and everything. When you think about rehosting, it's really lifting your data, your virtual machines maybe, just from on-premise to the cloud. Just copy, paste, lift and shift, easy work. But as I mentioned before, sometimes it's not the best way to do, and actually sometimes it works and it's very fine. It's for everybody the easiest way to do. Most of the time not. So sometimes refactor could be the thing you're looking for. So what does that mean? That's when it's from infrastructure service. So maybe you would just rent some VMs and servers, virtual servers, and you would copy your stuff on there. There might be services that you could use as a platform as a service. So we are talking about serverless computing, or maybe when you think on a SQL database, you don't have to host a whole SQL virtual server anymore. You can use a SQL as a service, and that would be just like a serverless computing. Re-architect is what we are talking about. Sometimes there are services out there that suits your needs more and gives you new opportunities. So let's think about something new and change some ways of doing things. That is a nice point to do so and think about that. And we come to software. Sometimes we face, or not sometimes, we face a lot of software out there, applications out there. They are not cloud ready. So we do have to rebuild them and maybe change the code in it, and that is cloud ready. Or maybe it is a legacy program and it is really, really old, and sometimes it's better to rebuild or build it new just for your new needs and not to rebuild it anymore. Or we come to the SaaS or software as a service. So maybe there are services or software out there that actually are better than the software you were using beforehand. So maybe it's time to replace the software. As you can see, it is kind of complex, but it's really gets you into what I do mean when I'm talking about creating a new individual blueprint. So to summarize this, we do have more options, possibilities than on-premise. Let's talk just about IaaS or PaaS or SaaS, software as a service. You might have to rethink your cloud blueprint, because when you have a company working in different regions all over the globe, maybe there are some services not available at your region. We can work with scalability sets, with availability sets as well. That is something you are not able to do on an on-premise environment. We do have a whole lot of new security options, and we talk about that later on as well. And of course, you have new options to create even safer backup solutions. So that is something the cloud provides you with stuff that you're not able to do or not as easy to do on premise. So as you can see, take your time, create a new and individual cloud blueprint to your needs, and overthink that every once in a while. You would do that on the on-premise environment too. Juliana, I think it's time for rule of thumb number 4.
Yes. So yay, two rules left. Okay, so the fourth rule of thumb is don't be afraid to overestimate. And we know this is very broad. So to understand what we actually mean by this is simply we are referring to the actual cloud infrastructure blueprint that Nico described. And overestimate in this case means to acquire bigger servers or more resources that you might think you need, or at least in the beginning. And why we think this is a part of the migration process and a good thing to implement is because, well, first of all, this is very different from on-premises, and you will not be, let's say, stuck with these resources forever. With the flexibility of the cloud, you have the freedom to scale them up and down within seconds, and you can even automate this process. So if you know what resources you will need, you can make sure to get what you need automatically. And you can also, in case you are worried about the costs, which is a valid concern, you can set up some cost alerts in case the budget is exceeded. And also you can use these additional temporary resources to take some items off of your backlog list. We can imagine, for example, a case where there is a legacy app, and well, actually, this actually happened in one of our projects. There was this legacy app where there were some improvements needed, but there was sort of never there were never the resources or the right time to upgrade them. And with the cloud migration, for example, you could use these added resources that you would have for in the beginning, in the first few months, for example, to enhance these apps, to add new features, and then to turn them off once the implementation is completed. So yeah, that is our second rule of thumb, not to be afraid to overestimate. And we actually, the cloud providers do offer you a lot of ways in which you can stay on top of these, of all of your resources, and you have what they call advisory. So advisory services, for example, Microsoft and AWS, they offer this, they are free, and they offer you these kinds of analytics where you can see exactly how reliable your environment is, how secure the performance. For example, they will actually tell you, hey, maybe you don't need so many VMs, you can turn some of these off, you know, reduce some costs. And they can basically help you achieve operational excellence and optimize your costs. So just to sum up, uh, basically, actually, one of the most important reasons why you would like to overestimate in the beginning is in order to have a seamless go live, because in the beginning it's very important to see everything running smoothly, and people will get a good feeling when everything is working, when they have no downtime or no outages, for example, especially during the migration. And as we said before, thanks to the flexibility, you can just undo these changes or do something different in a matter of seconds based on your proven needs. So you can use the time to see how much resource or how many resources you will need, and then decide for sure. Okay, so I will let Nico take over our last rule of the day.
Thank you, Juliana. And actually, we are quite out of time, but it's a really important topic, and I hope it's okay for you if we take a little bit longer, because security features are amazing what you can do in the cloud, and it is really important for all of us to have a safe environment. So take advantage of cloud security and features and roles. That's rule number 5. What does it mean? Let's take a look into that. So when you do the on-premise security features, what you usually do, what we find at the customer's place, is that they have a couple of monitoring tools. Maybe they have like sensors in their data center that looking for temperature whatsoever. When it comes to cloud, most cloud providers give you this stuff really easy and and for free as well. So you do have tons of loads of monitoring tools by your hand, so you can see over your environment. That's pretty nice. actually Microsoft just they announced last year, and we do hope it will come out this year as well, a feature where you can actually monitor and manage your environments through all different cloud vendors and your on-premise. It would be called Azure Arc, just to mention that, but that's a different topic, but I'm really excited when it comes out. So you do have the possibility not only to have monitoring tools, you can have like role-based access, you can really get detailed and on a detailed way who has access to your environment and what, where to. You can do that by person or just by roles. You can give to different people different roles, so that's really nice to do. You even can just like give people, grant them temporary access to some resources and grant them some roles just temporary, so you don't have to stay there all the time and waiting till the work is done. You can have like security groups. In Azure, it's called network security groups. That's another feature that's, you may think about a firewall on a virtual network site. That's something you don't have on-prem. You can you can automate everything or almost everything, and you get the newest updates and latest versions. That's always a good thing if you think about new security features. Most people don't think about this. That's my experience and our experience, that people don't think about the physical security of a data center. Who has access to that? Is someone stealing from you and all this stuff? So if you go to a cloud vendor, they care about the physical security as well, pretty hard on that. You can use multi-cloud as a security feature. So let's think about storing your keys or certificates, tokens in a different cloud. So if someone breaches into your system, they can breach into the key vault as well, because it's in a different cloud environment. You can easily control your shadow IT, because right now there's the people are working with a lot of IT applications you don't know about. Just think about how often did you use WhatsApp or your private email address for working purposes. I think most of us have done that in the past. You can really control that with IT cloud tools. And of course, and that is a security feature as well, you can easily grant all the GDPR things, what we need, what we are facing right now. Most of the times the GDPR should makes you control your data. That means you have to know where your data is and how long does it would be saved. You can do that all automatically, and that's a pretty nice feature. So the fifth and the last rule of thumb for today would be take advantage of the cloud security features and roles. I just mentioned it, but you should, just like a really strong word, and keep that in mind, shared responsibility. Cloud vendors as Microsoft, they have like 3,000 people worldwide working just on security knowledge and the newest security features. So it's not just your IT, security knowledge what comes to, and helps you. The cloud vendor comes to you as well. So regardless of the type, what you actually, what type of deployment you're choosing, it always stays in the responsibility, or what's responsibility is always retained by you. It's your data, your endpoints, your account, and your access management. That's something that always stays in your responsibility. So that's the main things I want to keep on. But on the other hand, depends on what you're choosing. it's really nice and smooth to share the responsibility and to know that you are safer than before. So I do hope that that was a nice overview of point 5, and I think, Juliana, you will take over one last time.
Yes, thank you, Nico. So I just wanted to say this, well, this concludes our 5 rules of thumb, and we just want to tell you that this is no magical recipe, or there is no silver bullet into the perfect cloud migration. Each case is different, and each environment, each company is different. So the important thing is to get the information that you need and to have someone also with a lot with knowledge on the topic, like a cloud partner, and to just to get informed on what is out there, and that can make a big difference.
You, Juliana and Nico, for your efforts in preparing this presentation. You're great. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Now let's go straight into the Q&A session, and I have a few questions in the pipeline. So first question would be, when to consider multi-cloud and why?
Now it's the question who answered this.
I can take this one.
Okay, sure.
Well, what we need to think of when we think of multi-cloud is that basically not all services will be available in every region on wherever you are in the world. And also maybe it's good to have this kind of diversity, because not all vendors offer exactly the same services. So perhaps you would need some extra security in your environment, like Nico mentioned, with where you would store some of your certificates into a different cloud. That's one case where you can actually use or leverage this multi-cloud. And well, another reason why and when you could use this is for cost reasons. You might find that some services, or I don't know, some virtual machines are cheaper with some vendors than others, and there is sometimes good integration between the two. So this can definitely be an option.
I have nothing to add there.
Great answer, thank you. And I have a question that's connected to what you said, and it goes like this. If we're talking about best practices when moving to the cloud, how should a mid-sized company frame journey? How should it identify the questions and frameworks that it should use to maximize the benefit while minimizing risks and, of course, budget?
I might want to take that just to make sure to understand that correctly, because I do have some sound issues. What the question is that how could a mid-sized company see, or when they look into a migration, what kind of questions should they ask, and how should they know if the migration is maybe they found a good cloud partner, and how could they see that? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Actually, that's pretty easy to answer. You do have the 5 rules of thumb now by your hand, and go to different cloud partners out there if you don't have the knowledge, and ask them how they would do this journey with you and what kind of questions they would ask and how they would proceed. If a cloud partner just goes in there, yeah, I do have this vendor and this is the best and we do this, and it's just like, we do that in 5 days, and he doesn't know your environment and your needs, you don't want to choose this cloud partner. Always you should choose us as a cloud partner, but now just be real. Go with the 5 thumbs. That gives you a good way of choosing your cloud partner. And with that, it does help to choose the right one. I hope I did answer the question.
Yep, thanks. Another one, what are my options when it comes to finding someone in the market to help my company with the work required to discover the on-premises environment, align it with different cloud options, and migrate the workloads in a structured and planned manner? That's a handful of a question, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try to focus on the first part of, I think that's the main question there about the options of finding the right cloud partner, I think.
Well, I think well, I'll take this one, Nico, if that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. I think there are a multitude of cloud partners out there with different skill sets and different levels of experience. So I think the best thing that we could recommend is just to see what's out there, to schedule some initial calls with them, like Nico mentioned earlier, just perhaps ask them how they would do it. And if you feel that they are prepared for this, if they do mention the very important steps that we also discussed, like an assessment and preparation and involving everyone in the company, then you know that that is a good partner. And they each of them might have different expertise on different cloud vendors out there. For example, Nico and I, we are specialized on Microsoft, but we also have in the company people who can help with AWS, Amazon, and cloud services, Google services, sorry.
Great, thank you very much. Now I had a hand raised from one of our attendees. We are waiting for the question in the Q&A section. For the moment, I don't have any other questions, but we might as well just wait for another 1 or 2 minutes and see if that person can post its remark or comment or question. If not, then I will just say thank you again. Thank you all for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Nico, Juliana, I hope you had a great time presenting your expertise on cloud strategy. Yeah.
It was good. Yeah, I did. It was fun. Yeah, I just mentioned. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Patricia, but I always feel like, okay, there was a lot of information in a pretty short of time period. It's not just like a slide on this year. Let's stay in touch. So if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact us. We are more than happy to help. And you will find Juliana as myself on LinkedIn, or you just can go the official way, and there will be always some colleague of us who would be pleased to help you. Yes, that was a word. Sometimes it's hard. So sorry for interrupting, Patricia.
No worries, and it was wonderful what you said. I also want to remind our guest today that the recorded version will be shared shortly after this, and we would be grateful if you could share with your network. Again, as Nico said, if you have any further questions, you can contact our speakers. You can also visit our website, accesa.eu, and leave us a message there. If there are no further questions, and I don't see any other questions, then that's the end of our webinar. Thank you both, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Have
much.
a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.